Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating and frankly pretty unsettling set of documents you, our listener, have provided. These sources focus on some really bold claims about future warfare, global control, and even the very nature of humanity. Our mission with this deep dive is basically to be your shortcut, helping you understand the most important nuggets of knowledge and the surprising facts in these documents without getting totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is just the very premise of what we're about to explore. The core of today's deep dive really centers around a document that was purportedly found on the NASA website. So our goal is to distill the key claims and arguments presented in this and some related source material. We want to help you navigate these complex and, let's be honest, potentially disquieting ideas. And we should acknowledge that, some of these concepts are highly unconventional, widely discussed maybe, but outside the scope of these specific texts we're looking at today.
Definitely. So let's jump right into the central document. It's a PowerPoint presentation
Saved.
titled Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare circa 2025. And it was presented way back in July 2001 by Dennis Bushnell, who is the chief NASA scientist at the Langley Center. And what's really remarkable, as our source highlights, is the claim that it was found on the NASA website itself, making it, quote, certainly available to the public, though clearly not widely known. That's a pretty interesting starting point, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the document's core premise, as it states, is about robots, cyborgs, and humans.
Yeah.
And it explicitly claims its content is, and this is a direct quote, based in all cases upon existing data trends, analysis technologies, no pixie dust.
No pixie dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our source points out that this immediately signaled an uncomfortable realization for them because it suggested this conflict between future and now, maybe implying a definite cover-up, if the document's contents were actually current realities back in 2001.
Wow.
That's a pretty strong assertion right out of the gate, you know?
Yeah, it really is. What really stood out to me from this document, and honestly what I found most unsettling, were its claims about human limitations. What specifically does it say about our inherent downsides, as they put it?
It's quite stark, really. Directly quoting from page 66 of the NASA document, it states, increasingly critical are human limitations and human downsides.
Mm.
And it goes on to detail specific critiques, asserting the humans are, well, too large, too heavy, too tender, too slow, both physically and mentally, and we require huge logistical train.
So basically, we're inconvenient.
Exactly. This effectively means, according to the document, humans cost way too much money to maintain. And this culminates in the really chilling phrase, humans are rapidly decreasing to negative value.
Decreasing to negative value. That's something.
It is. And our source notes that various agencies, the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, CIA, FBI, Southern Command, Atlantic Command, even the Australian Department of Defense are supposedly involved in considerations related to this. So the core insight here is this kind of shift in perspective where human beings are evaluated not just for what they can do, but for their cost and their perceived liabilities in these future scenarios.
That phrase, decreasing to negative value, is incredibly stark. So given that view of humanity, what does this document then propose as the arsenal for future warfare? Let's dive into the technologies it outlines.
Okay, so the document, according to the source material we have, describes several direct warfare technologies. First, beam weapons. These are noted as increasingly prevalent on page 45. Now, while we're all kind of familiar with the concept from sci-fi, maybe the document presents them as already significant.
Right, not just future tech.
Not just future tech. Then there's something called microdust, which it posits as micron-sized mechanized dust. So imagine particles so small they're airborne, designed to be distributed as an aerosol. Then, according to the document, these are inhaled into the lungs, where they mechanically bore into the lung tissue and execute various pathological missions.
Mechanically bore into lung tissue? That's horrifying.
It is. And the source emphasizes this is presented as a completely new type of warfare and, chillingly, as legal.
Legal. Wow. Okay, and what about frequency warfare? That sounds quite different from traditional weapons.
Indeed, that's a whole other layer.
Mhm.
The document also discusses frequency warfare, detailing the use of low frequencies, microwave frequencies. Now, our source connects this directly to things like smart meters, electric gas, water meters that are being deployed globally.
No, those are everywhere now.
Exactly. And the claim is they will be linked to our food supply and energy allowances. It even references an alleged U.S. Army report, supposedly available on smartmetersmurder.com, that talks about using frequencies to target the enemy. And our source asserts the enemy is, quote, us.
So the general population.
That's the claim. And it's a broad claim that 100% of the human population will be affected by these frequencies, leading to a whole range of symptoms like ringing of the ears, heart palpitations, skin rashes, inability to sleep through the night, even jamming immune systems, potentially causing seizures.
That's quite a list. What's the supposed goal of all this?
Well, the asserted intention, according to the source interpreting these documents, is stark. Incarceration, enslavement, depopulation, and massive mind control.
That's a significant claim about the reach of these technologies. What about the physical infrastructure? Does it mention how these things are delivered?
It does. Another claim is about disguised towers. The source says cell phone towers are erupting everywhere and are being deliberately hidden.
Hidden?
As trees, church steeples, even yuccas in the desert, apparently,
Mm.
or mobile oil signs in gas stations, and those uplight standards you see in shopping center parking lots.
Huh. I've seen some weird-looking trees.
Right? And the source specifically mentions a newly discovered cancer cluster at San Diego State University that it links to campus towers. So the key takeaway from this section on future warfare is really a vision that moves way beyond conventional combat. It's targeting individuals at a microscopic level, even an energetic level,
Yeah.
completely redefining the battlefield and, kind of chillingly, the legality of engagement itself, according to these documents.
This sounds like a really comprehensive and multi-layered plan they're describing. Let's dig into the more direct and public claims about control and manipulation found in the NASA document, starting with that scenario on page 98 you mentioned.
Right, page 98. This details an alleged U.S. takedown scenario, claiming the U.S. could be crippled by just 10 people and $10 million.
10 people.
Using binary biological imported vitamins and clothing. That's the quote. The methods described are quite specific, too. Poisoning the food supply, terror attacks with vaccines and with viruses, attacks on railroads, selective anti-personnel with radiation frequencies, microwaves from the towers, and contaminating the water supply via intercontinental unmanned vehicles.
Wow. That's a lot. And what was that about CNN?
Ah, yes. This is all accompanied by what the document calls the CNN syndrome, which it describes as leveraging a news media network, CNN specifically, that the source claims was set up by the CIA and functions as a propaganda machine. The implication being it's used to control the narrative during such an event.
Okay. And interestingly, while these claims outline these, immediate threats, the NASA document also steps back to address something even more fundamental on page 9, right? Something about directing human evolution. What's the connection there?
Yeah, it's a really profound leap. Reverting to page 9 of the document, it emphasizes the claim that humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution. And they, quote, they're going to direct evolution.
Direct evolution.
That's the claim. And this connects to the source's interpretation that the bankers, the global elites, believe they, quote, have accomplished immortality.
Yeah.
And have allegedly mapped our brains and can now transfer a human brain into machinery.
Transfer a brain into machinery? Seriously?
According to the source's interpretation of this document, yes. It suggests this really far-reaching vision of control over the very future of the human species.
Okay, so beyond the NASA document, another foundational text mentioned in the source material is the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document. So what does this all mean for how society itself is structured and controlled, according to these documents?
Right. The Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document, it's a 41-page text described in the source as a 1954 Bilderberg policy, apparently, and an operations research and technical manual that, quote, laid out the strategy to control the human population. It even calls itself a declaration of war.
A declaration of war.
Yeah. Now, it's really important to note that the authenticity and context of this document are highly debated outside of the source material we're looking at here.
Okay, good point.
But within the claims we're reviewing, it suggests the political system, right and left, was basically set up so people would feel their grievances were aired. But really, the bankers were behind everyone who was elected, and they laugh at us. That's the claim.
That's an incredibly cynical view of political power. And the document allegedly goes even further with its view of the general population, right? It had some pretty harsh words.
It does, yeah. The document's final statement, as quoted by our source, is, well, it's chilling. Factor 6, cattle.
Cattle.
Cattle. Those who will not use their brains are no better off than those who have no brains.
Yeah.
This refers to what it calls a mindless school of jellyfish, becoming useful beasts of burden or trainers of the same.
Wow. That's blunt.
Very. Furthermore, the source details claims from the document that they will dole out poisonous foods that are Not what we need, but it's what we want. It discusses how social engineering was allegedly used to crumble the family and influence thinking, to allow families to give up their children to war for a rich man's fodder.
Good grief.
And then there's this concept of an artificial womb,
Artificial womb, what's that?
where elites supposedly set themselves up to provide protection for people, but really to keep us crippled and numb us down with foods so that our pineal gland is interfered with. This, according to the source, is directly connected to massive fluoridation across the United States, which is supposedly designed to collapse the ability for us to think.
Fluoride, to start people thinking.
That's the assertion presented in the source material. The implication here is a deeply, deeply engineered societal structure designed purely for control.
The claims extend even broader, then, to environmental and societal control, including what's detailed in the Iron Mountain report. What does that document, as presented in your sources, propose?
All right, the Iron Mountain Report. This is another document, which our source describes as proclaiming USA Inc., meaning that, according to these claims, we're no longer under a constitution, we're a corporation.
USA Inc.
And it details methods to actually create pollution, including plans to deforest us. This is directly linked in the source to chemtrail, which is commonly understood as chemtrail geoengineering or weather modification programs.
Okay, I've heard those terms.
And these programs allegedly increase weather events like tornadoes, reduce the food supply, and even change soil pH to benefit a Monsanto megacorporation food takeover.
So manipulating the weather to control food.
That's the claim. And these actions, the source claims, tie into the idea that there's simply too many people using too much stuff, and the Earth cannot support this, leading to what the source calls fear-based scientific fraudulent information about CO2 reduction, which is purportedly rewriting history, and they're rewriting science.
So it's not just about what's happening now, but actually a reinterpretation of reality itself. Is that the idea?
Precisely. The source also claims that a reason for sending people to war is to reduce the population because they have stolen from them,
Right.
taking real labor service in exchange for illegitimate false fiat money.
Yeah.
And so war eliminates the creditors, the people they owe.
Eliminating creditors by sending them to war.
That's the grim logic presented. And both the Iron Mountain and NASA documents, according to the source, claim that they will control the educational system and eventually replace the education system with computers, leading to T-commuting, T-shopping, T-entertainment, T-travel, T-education, everything remote, everything digital.
Everything.
Yeah, and the purpose, allegedly, is to rewrite history because digital books, like on a Kindle, are easily changed.
Right, you can update them remotely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as a stark example of this alleged rewriting of reality, the source offers this anecdote that a weather reporter now says soft sunshine because the sun doesn't shine like it used to,
Yeah.
illustrating how they're rewriting our vocabulary, maybe, to reflect a manipulated environment.
Wow. It really paints this picture where, I mean, our futures are being determined for us. Our very lifespans are being decided upon, according to these documents. So if these sources are to be believed, what's the proposed solution? How do you counter this kind of multi-leveled attack they describe?
Well, the proposed solution from the source is very specific. Revelation, not a revolution.
Revelation, not revolution. Why not revolution?
Because, it explains, a revolution would only bring in martial law, and that would allow them to just roll out all this weaponry we've talked about, drones, microdust, beam weapons, and something called the blast wave accelerator, which it describes as a tidal wave invention from the 1940s, believe it or not.
A tidal wave invention.
Designed to exploit methane deposits into the ocean to create fingerprintless, plumeless tidal waves targeting low-lying areas.
Okay, that's another level.
So the core idea is that overt conflict would only play into the alleged plans of those supposedly in control.
Right. That raises an important question then. If revolution isn't the answer, what is the path forward? What's the alternative to combat these alleged plans?
Education. The source stresses that people need to become educated as rapidly as possible, and specifically by reading these core, simple source documents themselves.
Which ones again?
The Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document, the Iron Mountain document, something called the New World Order Exposed 1969, and crucially, the NASA document. The idea presented is that if everyone understands the fraud, as they call it, then we will be able to eliminate this. It urges the listener to, quote, move from the illusion, the non-reality that you're living in, and into a new reality formed by the truths that these documents convey.
So individual awakening through reading these specific texts.
That's the core emphasis, yes. Individual enlightenment through these specific texts.
And where can our listener find these resources that are mentioned in the sources if they want to look into them?
The main website mentioned is stopthecrime.net.
Hmm.
And that apparently links to smartmetersmurder.com and also some YouTube videos the source considers invaluable, including a series by someone named Barry Trower on the weaponization of frequencies.
Okay, stopthecrime.net. We'll make sure that's noted.
That's
So,
true.
wrapping this up, what really stands out to you from this deep dive? It's clear from these sources, there are perspectives suggesting a deeply orchestrated reality with claims about everything from human value to environmental manipulation. It's a lot. The challenge, according to these documents, isn't just to see the surface, is it? But to understand the underlying plans and motivations they allege. What new questions does this deep dive spark for you, our listener, about the information you consume every day, and maybe how you choose to verify it? That seems like a key takeaway.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the constant message here within these sources is the power of understanding what's allegedly been at play for decades. It all comes back to seeking out and grappling with these foundational source materials, whether you agree with them or not. They certainly claim to offer a radically different lens through which to view our world. Thanks for sharing these really fascinating and definitely thought-provoking sources for today's deep dive.